For 18 years, she hid the truth.
Not because she was ashamed.
Not because she was afraid, but because the last time someone discovered what she really was. So Elena will finally notice too. Before letting her young, stay quiet. Until one mistake changed everything they were never supposed to see.
3 days later, the kingdom's most feared duke arrived. The man nobles feared. The man servants avoided. The ruthless duke. Then suddenly, the duke stopped walking, turned slowly, and looked directly at her. The entire room froze.
Remove the glove.
For 18 years, nobody cared about Elena Vale. Not nobles, not servants, not merchants. Not even most people living in the tiny village she called home. If someone asked about Elena, people usually answered the same way. Which one? Because that was exactly how she wanted it. Invisible, forgettable, safe. Every morning before sunrise, Elena woke before everyone else. Not because she enjoyed mornings, because empty streets meant fewer eyes. Fewer questions, fewer chances of someone noticing something strange. She quietly slipped from the tiny room she rented above an old bakery. The wooden floor creaked beneath her feet. She always stepped carefully. She learned long ago, even small sounds could attract attention. Outside, the village slowly woke. Merchants prepared their carts. Bakers opened their doors. Children chased chickens across muddy roads. Elena kept her head down, always. People rarely saw her face. She preferred it that way. The old bread seller once laughed. "You walk like you're trying not to exist." Elena simply smiled, because he was right. That was exactly what she was trying to do. For 18 years, existing quietly kept her alive, because Elena carried something dangerous, something terrifying, something nobody was supposed to know. Even now, she wore gloves every single day. Winter, summer, rain, heat. People occasionally asked. "Always gloves," Elena always answered. "My hands get cold." Nobody questioned it. People rarely question boring people. That was another lesson she learned young. Being interesting was dangerous, very dangerous, especially after what happened, because the last time someone discovered the truth, people died. Not one person, not two, entire families disappeared. Elena still remembered pieces, not everything, only fragments, flashes, screaming, fire, running, a woman crying, someone shouting, "Take her!" Then darkness. Sometimes she woke from those memories, breathing hard, sweating, looking at her hands, checking, making sure the gloves were still there, because every nightmare reminded her, never reveal yourself, never trust anyone, never let people get close, and most importantly, never let powerful people notice you. Powerful people always asked questions. Questions led to answers. Answers led to death. So Elena built a life around being ordinary. Painfully ordinary. She worked wherever people needed extra hands, cleaning, carrying water, washing dishes, sorting vegetables. Nothing important, nothing memorable. At the market, people barely noticed when she arrived, barely noticed when she left, exactly how she liked it. Sometimes she watched other girls, laughing, flirting, dreaming about marriage, dreaming about noble husbands, dreaming about escaping village life. Elena never dreamed like that, because dreams required futures. And Elena wasn't sure she had one. The elderly woman who rented her room often complained. "You never smile properly," Elena simply answered. "Smiling attracts attention." The woman laughed. Elena didn't, because she wasn't joking. Every day followed identical rules. Wake early, work quietly, avoid crowds, avoid arguments, avoid attention, survive, repeat. Years passed like that, slowly, quietly, safely. Until one morning, everything changed. It began like every other day. Elena walked toward the market carrying baskets. Fog covered the road. The village river flowed quietly nearby. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous. Then suddenly, someone screamed, "A child!" Elena turned. People gathered near the bridge. Panicked voices echoed, "Someone help! The boy fell! Oh no!" Elena pushed through the crowd. A small child struggled inside the river. The current dragged him away. People panicked. Nobody moved, because the river current was strong. "Too strong," someone shouted. "We need rope," another yelled. "Get help!" The child disappeared under water, then surfaced again, crying, terrified. Elena froze, her heart pounded. No, don't do it. Walk away. Someone else will help. Stay invisible. Stay safe. But the child disappeared again, and suddenly Elena remembered another face, another child, another memory, another scream. Her breathing became shaky. No, not again. Before she realized it, she moved. People, wait! Elena jumped. Cold water swallowed her instantly. The current pulled violently, but Elena ignored it. She reached forward, saw the child, grabbed him. The current became stronger, too strong. People on shore screamed. Then something happened. Something that wasn't supposed to happen. For a single moment, the water around Elena moved strangely, almost unnaturally. The current slowed, just enough, just long enough. Elena pushed forward, reached shore, collapsed. The child coughed water, alive. People rushed forward. Everyone cheered. Everyone cried. Everyone celebrated. Elena immediately stood. Bad, this was bad, very bad. Too many people watched, too many eyes, too much attention. She quickly turned, trying to leave. Then she noticed something. An old man staring, not smiling, not celebrating, watching, studying. His expression changed. Recognition. Elena's stomach dropped because she knew that look. She had seen it before, many years ago. The old man whispered something, very quietly, too quietly, but Elena heard it. Impossible. Fear crawled through her chest. She walked faster, then almost ran back to her room, locked the door, checked the gloves. Still there, good. Safe. Nobody knows, nobody saw. Nobody understands, right? That night, Elena couldn't sleep. The old man's face repeated in her mind. The strange movement in the river repeated. The feeling of losing control repeated. Morning came. Then another day, then another. Nothing happened. Slowly, Elena relaxed. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe nobody noticed. Maybe she was safe. Then on the fourth morning, horse hooves echoed through the village. People rushed outside. Children screamed excitedly. Merchants panicked. Villagers whispered. Elena looked through her window. Her blood turned cold. Black carriages. Silver banners, armed soldiers, and at the center, a symbol everyone recognized instantly. The symbol of the most feared man in the kingdom, the Duke. Elena stopped breathing because she only had one rule. One rule more important than every other rule. Never let the Duke notice you. Unfortunately, that had just become impossible. The first thing people noticed was the silence. Not the soldiers, not the carriages, not even the black banners moving through the morning wind. The silence. Because the moment the villagers saw the symbol painted on those banners, everyone stopped talking. Children stopped playing. Merchants stopped shouting. Even dogs stopped barking. People simply stared. Black horses, silver armor, perfect rows of soldiers. And at the center, a carriage darker than everything around it. Elena watched from her small window. Her fingers tightened against the wooden frame. No, not here, not now. The symbol hanging from the carriage door made her stomach twist. A silver wolf surrounded by thorns. The crest of House Ashford. The crest everyone feared, because that crest belonged to one man, Duke Lucian Ashford, the ruthless Duke, the monster Duke, the man mothers used to frighten children. Behave, sleep, or Duke Ashford will hear about it. Children laughed at those stories. Adults didn't, because the stories were true. Or at least, most people believed they were. Elena slowly stepped away from the window. Her breathing became shallow. This couldn't happen. Not here. Not because of her. Outside, people rushed toward the main road. Whispers spread instantly. The Duke is here. Why would someone like him visit here? Did somebody commit treason? Maybe taxes? No, this looks worse. Elena wanted to stay inside, lock the door, hide, pretend she didn't exist. But hiding suddenly felt dangerous too. Because if soldiers searched houses, being absent might attract attention. Attention was bad. Attention always became worse. So reluctantly, Elena left her room. The village square filled quickly. People lined both sides of the road. Nobody spoke loudly. Nobody smiled. Nobody celebrated. Because nobody celebrated when Duke Ashford arrived. Everyone simply waited. Then the carriage stopped. Soldiers moved instantly. 2 lines formed. The carriage door opened and Duke Lucian Ashford stepped outside. Elena immediately understood why people feared him. He wasn't enormous. He wasn't covered in scars. He didn't look like a monster. That somehow made him worse. Tall, perfect posture, dark coat, black gloves, sharp silver eyes, completely expressionless. He looked less like a person, and more like someone carved from stone. The villagers bowed immediately. Some almost fell over themselves trying. Elena lowered her head too. Do not look, do not stare, do not be remembered. She repeated those words inside her mind. Then she heard footsteps, slow, measured. The Duke walked through the square. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Elena accidentally looked up. Only briefly. Their eyes almost met. Her heart stopped. Then he continued walking. Relief crashed through her. Good, he didn't notice. Good, everything was the village chief. The Duke's voice interrupted everything. Cold. Dangerously quiet. The chief rushed forward immediately. Your Grace. The Duke stared. We are investigating unauthorized power usage. The square became silent again. Unauthorized power, forbidden power. People exchanged nervous looks. The chief swallowed. There must be some misunderstanding. The Duke ignored him. 3 nights ago. His silver eyes slowly scanned the crowd. Someone used power near the river. Elena felt cold, very cold. Her hands instinctively moved toward her gloves. No, no, the Duke continued. Witnesses reported unusual movement. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Elena tried slowing her breathing. The Duke asked, "Who saw it?" For several seconds, nothing happened. Then someone raised their hand. Elena froze. The old man, the same old man, the one from the river. He stepped forward slowly. Elena suddenly couldn't hear anything else, only her heartbeat. The old man bowed. I saw something. The Duke looked at him. What? The old man hesitated. People leaned closer. Elena wanted to disappear. The old man finally answered, a girl. The world stopped. A girl. Not a person. Not someone. A girl. The Duke's eyes narrowed slightly. Describe her. Elena's breathing became difficult. Please don't, please, the old man frowned. I couldn't see clearly. Relief, tiny relief. Then he added, but she wore gloves. Elena nearly stopped breathing. Gloves. Why mention gloves? Why? Why? Suddenly, several villagers looked around. Gloves. Who wore gloves? Elena slowly lowered her hands behind her back. Too late, someone whispered. Elena wears gloves, another voice. She always wears gloves, another. Even during summer, fear spread through her chest. No, this is bad, very bad. The Duke noticed the whispers immediately. His gaze slowly moved through the crowd. Elena lowered her head. Don't look. Please don't look, the Duke asked quietly. Elena? The village chief nervously pointed. This girl, your Grace. Elena wanted to run. Her legs refused. The crowd moved away from her, creating space. Too much space. Suddenly everyone could see her, the invisible girl. Finally noticed. The Duke stared. Elena kept her eyes down. Seconds passed. Too many seconds. Finally, the Duke spoke. Look at me. Her body froze. Slowly, she raised her head. Silver eyes met hers, cold, sharp. Observing everything, the Duke asked, your name? Elena. Full name. Occupation? Various work. The Duke stared longer, too long. Then asked, why do you wear gloves? Use prepared answers. My hands get cold. Silence. The Duke looked at her gloves. Then her face. Then back to the gloves. Elena tried not shaking. Then, unexpectedly, he turned away. Relief hit instantly. Maybe it's over. Maybe continue investigating. The Duke spoke to soldiers. Question everyone. Elena's relief vanished. Everyone? Question everyone? That was worse. Much worse. Because lies became dangerous when repeated, and people talked. People always talked. As soldiers spread through the village, Elena realized something terrifying. The Duke hadn't left. He remained standing in the center of the square. Watching, observing, waiting, almost like he already knew something. Hours passed. Questions continued. Villagers whispered constantly. Elena? Really? She seems harmless. That's what makes it suspicious. The day slowly became unbearable. Then evening arrived. Elena finally returned home. Locked the door, collapsed against it. Her hands shook violently. This wasn't over. Not even close. Outside, horse footsteps echoed again, then armor, then voices. Elena slowly moved toward the window, soldiers walking toward her building. Her blood turned cold, a knock echoed, not gentle, not friendly, 3 hard knocks, then a voice. By order of his grace, Elena stopped breathing. Because suddenly, she realized something. She thought nobody saw what happened at the river. She was wrong. The knocking continued, hard, slow, unavoidable. Elena stood frozen inside her small room. The voice outside repeated, by order of his grace. Her heart pounded. No, maybe if she stayed quiet, maybe they would leave. Another knock, louder. Elena Vale. They knew her name. Her hands began shaking. For 18 years, she prepared for this moment. Not this exact moment, but something like it. Someone asking questions. Someone noticing. Someone important arriving. She imagined countless possibilities. Running, hiding, escaping. None of those plans suddenly seemed possible. The voice outside became colder. Open the door. Elena slowly moved, each step heavy. She unlocked the door. 3 soldiers stood outside. Silver armor, black cloaks, expressionless faces. Behind them, villagers watched from windows, from doorways, from streets, watching, always watching. The tallest soldier spoke. You are to come with us, Elena swallowed. Why? His Grace wishes to speak with you. Wishes. That word somehow felt worse, because if the Duke truly wanted something, nobody refused. The elderly woman who rented Elena's room peeked from behind a door, her face pale. Elena, what happened? Elena couldn't answer, because she didn't know, or maybe she did. The soldier extended his hand. Gather your things. Elena looked around her tiny room. There wasn't much, a few clothes, books, blankets, old memories. 18 years of hiding reduced to almost nothing. She picked up a small bag. The soldier nodded. Come, outside. The village became quieter. People moved aside immediately. Children stared openly. Adults whispered. Some looked terrified. Some looked curious. Some looked relieved. That hurt more, because Elena realized something. People weren't worried for her. They were relieved it wasn't them. A woman whispered, I knew something was strange. Another answered, she always hid. Someone else, maybe she's dangerous. Elena kept walking, head lowered, just like always. Only now, everyone finally noticed her. The black carriage waited nearby, large, elegant, intimidating. The same carriage from yesterday, the same symbol, silver wolf, thorns, House Ashford. The soldier opened the door. Inside. Elena hesitated. If she entered, everything changed. If she refused, everything changed faster. So she entered. The door closed. Darkness, soft seats, silence. Then movement. The carriage began rolling. Elena looked through the small window. Her village slowly disappeared. The bakery, the market, the bridge, her room, everything gone, maybe forever. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time became strange. Elena replayed everything repeatedly. The river, the old man, the questions, the Duke, the gloves. Her hands slowly moved toward them. Still there. Good. Safe. Right? Suddenly, the carriage stopped. Elena looked outside and immediately understood something. The stories about the Duke's castle were not exaggerated. Massive stone walls, towering gates, armed guards everywhere, black banners moving in the wind. The castle didn't look welcoming. It looked like something designed to remind people they were powerless. The carriage doors opened. Come! Elena stepped outside. The castle courtyard overwhelmed her. Servants moved quickly. Soldiers trained nearby. Nobles walked through corridors. Nobody smiled. Nobody laughed. Everything felt controlled, cold, efficient, terrifying. She followed the soldiers through enormous hallways, paintings covered walls. Golden lights flickered, footsteps echoed endlessly. Eventually, they stopped, large doors, massive, decorated with silver wolves. The soldiers pushed them open. Elena entered. The room was enormous. Too enormous. Large windows, dark furniture, bookshelves, fireplace. And at the far end, someone sat behind a desk, the Duke, Lucian Ashford. He didn't immediately look up. Instead, he continued reading papers. The soldiers bowed. She is here, Your Grace. The Duke slightly. Leave. The doors closed. Now only Elena and the Duke remained. Silence. Long silence. Too long. Elena stood motionless. The Duke finally looked up, those silver eyes again, observing, measuring, calculating. No greeting. No introduction. No smile. Only one question. How long have you been hiding? Elena's heart nearly stopped. Too direct. Too fast. She swallowed. I don't know what you mean. The Duke stared. Not angry. Not surprised. Simply staring. Then he slowly leaned forward again. The room suddenly felt smaller. Elena forced herself to stay calm. I truly don't understand. The Duke stood, slowly walked around the desk. His footsteps echoed. He stopped only a few feet away. You wear gloves every day. Elena stayed silent. You avoid crowds. Silence. You never allow people close. Silence. You saved a drowning child. Her breathing stopped. The Duke continued. And witnesses reported unusual movement in the water. Elena looked down. Dangerous. Everything dangerous. The Duke asked quietly. What exactly are you hiding? Elena answered quickly. Nothing. The Duke stared. Then, unexpectedly, he walked past her, toward the fireplace. You know what people say about me? Elena remained silent. The Duke continued. They say I enjoy destroying families. Silence. They say I execute people for entertainment. Silence. They say nobody survives becoming my enemy. He turned toward her. Do you believe those stories? Elena didn't know what to say. The Duke answered himself. Most are exaggerated. Tiny relief. Then he added, not all. Relief disappeared. The Duke walked closer again. To ask once more, his voice became quieter, which somehow felt worse. How long have you been hiding? Elena forced herself to answer. I don't know what you're talking about. The Duke stared for several seconds. Then suddenly, he reached toward her hand. Elena instantly stepped backward, too quickly, much too quickly. The Duke noticed. Of course he noticed. His eyes moved slowly toward her gloves. Interesting, very interesting. The Duke quietly said, "You reacted." Elena remained silent. The Duke looked almost disappointed. Then he walked back toward his desk, picked up a document, looked at it briefly, then asked, "Do you know what happened 18 years ago?" Elena froze. 18 years. Why 18? Why that number? The Duke noticed immediately. His eyes narrowed slightly. There it is! Elena's stomach dropped. There what? The Duke placed the paper down. For the first time since entering this room, he looked directly into her eyes. You looked afraid. Cold spread through Elena's chest. Because suddenly, she realized something terrifying. This wasn't questioning. This wasn't investigation. The Duke wasn't trying to discover whether she had secrets. He already knew she did. He was simply waiting for her to reveal them herself. The Duke slowly sat again, then spoke words Elena feared more than anything. Tomorrow. She blinked. What? The Duke answered calmly. Tomorrow morning. He folded his hands. You will stand before my court. Elena stared. Court? Why everyone? The Duke's voice remained calm. And there, he looked directly at her gloves. You will finally tell the truth. Elena's blood turned cold. Because for the first time, she realized something horrifying. The Duke wasn't asking anymore. He had already decided. Elena didn't sleep, not really. She closed her eyes, opened them, closed them again. Every time she drifted, she saw the same thing. The Duke's silver eyes, the courtroom, the gloves, her secret. Morning arrived too quickly. A knock echoed. Not loud, not aggressive, just enough. A servant entered. His Grace requests your preparation. Requests. Another word that wasn't really a request. The servant placed clothes on the bed. Dark dress, simple, elegant, nothing like what Elena normally wore. The servant hesitated, then quietly asked, Are you truly going before the court? Elena looked away. I think so. The servant swallowed. Nobody appears before court unless something terrible happened. Wonderful. That helped. The servant carefully brushed Elena's hair, adjusted her clothes, then stopped while looking at the gloves. You're keeping them? Elena immediately pulled her hands closer. Yes. The servant nodded slowly. Didn't ask again. Everyone eventually learned something about Elena. Never ask about the gloves outside. The castle already felt different. More movement, more guards, more servants rushing, more whispers. As Elena walked through the halls, people stared. Servants pretending not to stare. Nobles openly staring. Soldiers watching. Everywhere, people whispered, That's her, the village girl. The Duke brought her personally. What did she do? Murder? Treason? Forbidden power. The words floated through corridors. Elena lowered her head, just like always, but it no longer worked. Because invisible people weren't escorted by guards. Two soldiers stopped before enormous doors. The same silver wolf symbol covered them. One soldier spoke. The court awaits. Awaits. Not good. Very not good. The doors slowly opened. Elena immediately wanted them closed again. The room was enormous, much larger than the Duke's office. Rows of nobles filled both sides, officials, military commanders, servants standing near walls, everyone watching, hundreds of eyes, too many eyes, a loud voice echoed. His Grace Duke Luciana Ashford. Every person stood immediately. The Duke entered. Calm, controlled, perfect posture. He walked past everyone without acknowledging them, sat. The room remained silent. Then the Duke looked toward Elena. Bring her forward. Her legs suddenly felt heavy. The soldiers gently pushed. Elena walked. Every step echoed. She could feel people studying her, judging her, confused by her, because she didn't look dangerous. She looked ordinary. That made everything worse. Finally, she reached the center. The room became silent again. The Duke looked at everyone, then spoke. This woman has hidden something for 18 years, gasps. Whispers exploded instantly. 18 years? What secret? Who is she? 18 years? The Duke raised one hand. Silence returned immediately. Elena's heart pounded. The Duke continued. For 18 years, his silver eyes moved toward her. She remained unnoticed. More whispers. Impossible. Why would His Grace care? Who is she? The Duke looked directly at Elena. Silence. Elena stared. No, not here. Not like this. Not in front of everyone. She stayed silent. The Duke repeated. Reveal it. Still silence. The court became uncomfortable. People shifted, whispered. Some nobles looked annoyed. One elderly noble finally spoke. Your Grace! The Duke looked toward him. The man nervously continued. She appears to be a common girl. Several nobles agreed immediately. This is ridiculous. We interrupted court for this? Perhaps she stole something. Another noble laughed. She looks terrified. Laughter spread, small, cruel. Elena stared at the floor. Good. Let them think she's ordinary. Let them laugh. That was safer. The Duke suddenly spoke. She saved a drowning child. Silence, he continued. Witnesses observed unusual behavior. People immediately became interested again. The Duke's eyes returned to Elena. Reveal it. Still silence. His voice became colder. Or I will reveal it myself. Panic filled Elena instantly. No, he couldn't. Could he? Did he know? How much? Her breathing became uneven. The Duke noticed. Of course he noticed. One noble stood. Your Grace. The Duke nodded slightly. Do you suspect forbidden blood? The room changed instantly. Forbidden blood. People became nervous. Some nobles leaned backward. Others leaned closer. Another noble asked, should guards prepare? A military commander quietly moved his hand toward his sword. Elena suddenly realized something. These people were scared. Not of her, of what she might be. The Duke remained calm. I suspect many things. Wonderful. That somehow sounded worse. A woman near the front row stared, then whispered, the gloves. Others noticed immediately. Yes, she hasn't removed them. Why? Hide scars. Marks, the whispers grew. Gloves, gloves, gloves. Elena wanted to disappear. One arrogant young noble laughed loudly. This is absurd. He stood, walked closer. She is clearly frightened. More laughter. The man continued. Allow me, Elena looked up. The noble reached toward her hand. Instinct, pure instinct. Elena moved backward quickly, too quickly. A strange feeling passed through the room. Not visible, not obvious, but enough. Candles flickered. Several papers moved. The noble stopped. Everyone stopped. Silence, complete silence. The Duke slowly leaned forward. Interesting, very interesting. The arrogant noble stepped backward. You saw that? Another noble whispered. The candles, what was that? Elena immediately lowered her hands. No, 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 not again. The Duke quietly asked, would you like another chance? Elena remained silent. The Duke stood, slowly descended from his seat. His footsteps echoed through the room. Every person watched. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that only she could hear him. You are running out of time, Elena whispered. Why are you doing this? The Duke answered quietly. Because hiding no longer protects you. Elena stared. What does that mean? The Duke stepped back, looked at the court, then at Elena. His voice filled the room. Remove the gloves. Everything became quiet, painfully quiet. Elena looked around. Hundreds of eyes, nobles, servants, guards, everyone waiting. Her fingers trembled. Because if she obeyed, everything changed. Forever. If she refused, things might become worse. Much worse. The Duke spoke one final time. Not loudly. Not angrily. Which somehow felt more terrifying. Remove them. Elena slowly looked down at her hands. The gloves. The thing protecting her for 18 years. Her fingers began moving. Very slowly. Because suddenly, the moment she feared her entire life had finally arrived. Elena stared at her hands, the gloves, the same gloves she wore every day, every season, every year. For 18 years, the room waited. Hundreds of eyes fixed on her, waiting, watching, judging. The Duke stood only a few feet away, silent, patient, too patient. Her fingers refused to move, because once this happened, there was no fixing it. No returning, no hiding, nothing. The silence stretched longer. Then someone laughed, a young noble near the front. This is absurd, another joined. She's only a servant. A third rolled his eyes. We delayed court for gloves? Small laughter spread. Some nobles looked annoyed, others looked disappointed. They expected danger, a criminal, a traitor, a monster. Instead, they saw Elena, quiet, small, terrified. The Duke ignored them. His eyes never left Elena. Remove them. Not louder, not harsher, just final. Elena swallowed. Her breathing became shallow. Her fingers slowly moved toward the edge of the glove, then stopped. Because suddenly a memory returned, not clearly, never clearly. Only pieces, small pieces, a woman's voice, soft, shaking. Never remove them. Another memory, hands placing gloves on smaller hands. Promise me, fire, screaming, running. Promise me. Elena closed her eyes. Her chest tightened. She had promised. For 18 years, she kept that promise. But promises meant nothing now. Slowly, very slowly, she pulled. The glove moved slightly. Nothing happened. People leaned forward. More pulling. The glove slid halfway down. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. The entire room became silent. No laughter now, no whispers, only waiting. Then the glove came off completely. Silence. Absolute silence. For several seconds, nothing happened. Elena almost looked confused. That's it? Then she noticed their faces. People weren't speaking. Because they couldn't. The symbol covered part of Elena's hand. Not ink, not paint, not scars, a strange silver marking, lines twisting together, curving, forming patterns, almost glowing beneath the light. Gasps echoed instantly. Several nobles stood. One woman covered her mouth. A military commander stepped backward. Someone whispered. No, another voice. Impossible! An elderly lord suddenly grabbed his chair. His face became pale. Very pale, he whispered. It can't be! Then nearly collapsed. Servants rushed toward him. The room exploded into whispers. The mark. How? They disappeared. They all disappeared. Elena looked around, confused, terrified. Why were they reacting like this? The Duke remained calm, almost too calm. The elderly lord finally pointed, his voice shaking. That symbol! He struggled to breathe. That bloodline was erased. Silence returned. Erased. The word echoed. Erased. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Erased. The Duke quietly asked. Tell them. Elena looked up. What? The Duke repeated. Tell them your family name. Family name. Elena froze, because she didn't know. Not really. For 18 years, she had been Elena Vale, because that was the name given to her, the only name she remembered. Elena quietly answered. I don't know. Confusion spread. You don't know. How is that possible? The Duke asked. What is your earliest memory? Elena stayed quiet. Because the answer frightened her. Fire. Always fire. The Duke waited. Eventually, Elena answered, running. Silence. A woman holding my hand. More silence. She told me not to look back. The court listened carefully. Elena continued quietly. There were screams. Her breathing became uneven. Then I remember hiding. Someone in the court whispered, 18 years! The elderly lord slowly sat, still pale. He stared at Elena's hand. I saw that symbol once. Everyone looked toward him. The man swallowed. When I was young, his voice shook. It belonged to a family nobody dared challenge. More silence. A family powerful enough to frighten kings. Whispers exploded again. Powerful? Her? Impossible, the Duke finally spoke. Continue. The elderly lord hesitated, then answered, they disappeared overnight. His eyes moved toward Elena. Every member, another noble interrupted. No, his voice trembled. Not disappeared. The room turned toward him. He swallowed. They were hunted. Silence. Nobody moved. The noble continued. Entire estates burned. Servants vanished. Records destroyed. Names erased. Elena felt cold. Very cold, because suddenly the nightmares became heavier, more real. The Duke looked at Elena. You understand now? Elena whispered. No. Because she didn't. Not completely. The Duke slowly walked closer, then asked, for 18 years. His eyes moved toward the mark. Did nobody tell you what you are? Elena shook her head. No, the Duke looked almost disappointed. Or maybe concerned, very difficult to tell. Suddenly, one noble stood violently. This is dangerous, others immediately agreed. She should be contained, guarded, locked away. Investigated. Fear spread through the court. Not fear of Elena, fear of what she represented. Elena slowly stepped backward. The room suddenly felt hostile. The Duke noticed immediately. His expression became colder. Sit. Everyone obeyed instantly. The Duke looked around the court, then quietly said, You are all forgetting something. Silence, the Duke continued. For 18 years, he looked toward Elena. She survived. The room became quiet again, because surviving suddenly sounded impressive. Very impressive. The Duke slowly reached toward Elena's uncovered hand. She instinctively tried moving away. He stopped, not touching, just observing. Then he quietly said, Yes. Elena blinked. Yes? Yes what? The Duke looked into her eyes. For the first time, something changed. Not warmth. Not kindness. Something else. Recognition. The Duke quietly said, I was right. Elena stared. Right about what? The Duke didn't answer. Instead, he turned toward the entire court, raised his voice, and said words that changed everything. This woman! He paused. Is the last surviving heir? The room exploded. People stood. Guards moved. Nobles shouted. Servants panicked. Last surviving heir? Heir to what? The elderly lord looked horrified. Because suddenly, everyone understood something terrifying. If Elena truly survived, then someone failed 18 years ago, which meant whoever hunted her family might return to finish the job. Elena looked around, confused, terrified, overwhelmed, because moments earlier she was invisible. Now, every person in the room looked at her differently, not as a servant, not as a village girl, not as nobody, but as something much more dangerous. And somewhere inside that crowded courtroom, someone quietly whispered, She should have stayed hidden. Elena turned, but couldn't see who said it. And somehow, that frightened her more than everything else. The courtroom remained frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed willing to breathe. Only moments earlier, Elena was nobody. A servant. A village girl. Someone people barely noticed now. Hundreds of eyes followed her every movement. Not because they wanted to. Because they couldn't stop. The Duke's words still echoed. Last surviving heir. The phrase spread through the room like poison. Whispers returned. Impossible! She survived? How? Who protected her? Questions filled the room. But Elena heard none of them, because her attention remained fixed on one thing: the Duke, Lucien Ashford, the man who forced this, the man who exposed her, the man standing directly in front of her. Elena expected chains, guards, orders, something, anything. Instead, the Duke began walking toward her. Each step echoed, slow, controlled, confident. The room watched carefully. Elena's heart pounded. What now? Punishment? Arrest? The Duke stopped only a few feet away, then quietly said, "Finally." Elena blinked. "What?" The Duke looked at her uncovered hand, at the mark, then answered, "I've spent 10 years searching for you." The courtroom froze, complete silence. Even the wisps died. 10 years? Someone accidentally dropped papers. Nobody cared, because everyone heard the same thing: the Duke searching for a servant girl for 10 years. Elena stared. Her voice barely worked. "Why?" The Duke looked directly into her eyes. "Because the people who destroyed your family." He paused, long enough for the room to become uncomfortable. "They're returning." The words landed heavily. Returning. Returning from where? Returning why? Returning for who? Elena swallowed. "I don't understand." The Duke nodded slightly. "I know." Then he turned away from her, walked slowly toward the center of the court. His voice became louder. "For years." He looked around the room. "We believed the threat disappeared." Several nobles became uncomfortable. The Duke continued. "You were wrong." An older military commander stood. "Your Grace." The Duke looked toward him. The commander hesitated. "Are you certain?" The Duke answered immediately. "Yes." No explanation. No hesitation, just yes. That somehow frightened everyone more. One noble laughed nervously. "Perhaps this is exaggerated." Nobody joined his laughter. The Duke slowly looked toward him. The noble immediately became quiet, very quiet. The Duke asked, 3 weeks ago." He looked toward military officials. "What happened near the northern border?" The room became silent again. One commander answered, 3 villages disappeared." Elena looked up. "Disappeared?" The commander continued. "No survivors." Cold spread through the room. Another official added, "We believed bandits." The Duke shook his head. "Not bandits." He looked toward Elena. "The same people." Elena stared. "Same people? The people who destroyed her family? How? Why? Who were they?" Elena finally asked, "Who destroyed them?" The room became quiet again. The Duke didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked back toward her. His silver eyes carefully studied her face. Then he quietly asked, "What do you remember?" Elena frowned. "Nothing." The Duke waited. Elena corrected herself. "Not nothing." She looked down. Fire, silence. Screaming, more silence. Running. The Duke nodded slowly. "Anything else?" Elena hesitated, then answered quietly, "A woman." The Duke stayed still. "She kept telling me not to look back." The Duke asked, "Did you?" Elena froze, because she never talked about this. Not to anyone, not ever. Her voice became smaller. "Yes." The courtroom remained silent. Elena continued slowly. "I looked back." Her breathing became uneven. "I saw." She stopped. The Duke waited. Everyone waited. Finally, Elena whispered, "Black armor." The room changed instantly. Several nobles became pale. One elderly lord grabbed his chair again. The Duke asked, "What else?" Elena closed her eyes, trying to remember, trying not to remember. There was a symbol. The Duke's expression changed slightly. "What symbol?" Elena struggled. Then suddenly a memory appeared. Sharp, painful, a crown, silence. Elena continued, "With broken wings." The courtroom exploded. Whispers, fear, shock. The military commander immediately stood. "Impossible," another noble whispered. "No." The elderly lord looked terrified, because apparently everyone recognized it. Everyone except Elena. She looked around. "What?" Nobody answered. Eventually, Elena looked toward the Duke. "What does that mean?" The Duke stared for several seconds, then answered quietly. "It means," he paused, "they found you." Cold spread through Elena instantly. "Found? Who found her? How?" The Duke turned toward the court. "For 18 years." He spoke slowly. "They searched." The room remained silent. "They eliminated records." More silence. "They erased names." Even more silence. "They destroyed bloodlines." The Duke looked back toward Elena, and somehow his eyes narrowed slightly. "You survived." Elena whispered, "I don't understand why any of this matters." The Duke looked almost surprised, then answered, "Because your family wasn't killed for what they did." Elena frowned. "Then why?" The Duke answered quietly, "For what they could do." The room became silent again. Elena looked at her uncovered hand, the mark, the symbol, the thing everyone feared. "What can they do?" The Duke didn't answer. Instead, he asked something unexpected. Have strange things happened around you? Elena immediately froze. The river, the candles, small accidents, weird moments. She said nothing, the Duke noted. Of course, he quietly said, I thought so. Elena suddenly became frustrated. Stop doing that. The room became confused. The Duke raised an eyebrow. Doing what? Talking like you already know things. Silence. Very dangerous silence. Because apparently, nobody spoke to the Duke that way. But Elena no longer cared. The Duke stared. Then unexpectedly, he answered, Because I do. The room froze again. Elena blinked. What? The Duke quietly said, I know far more than you. That answer somehow made things worse. Elena shook her head. No. Her voice became stronger. No more secrets. The Duke looked interested. Elena continued, You dragged me here. You exposed me. You told everyone I'm some lost heir. Her breathing became shaky. Tell me what is happening. Long silence. The Duke looked toward the court, toward the nobles, toward the guards, then back toward Elena. Finally, he answered. Because if I'm wrong, he paused. You lose everything. Elena stared. And if you're right? The Duke's expression became colder, much colder than the kingdom does. Silence, heavy silence. Then suddenly, the large courtroom doors burst open. A messenger rushed inside, covered in dirt, breathing heavily. Your Grace! The man nearly collapsed. Guards caught him. The Duke remained calm. Report! The messenger swallowed. The northern border. His voice shook. Another village disappeared. The room became silent. Again, the messenger terrified. There were symbols. The Duke immediately stood straighter. What symbols? The messenger answered. Broken wings. Every person in the room looked toward Elena. Because suddenly, the threat wasn't returning. It was already here. The courtroom remained silent. Not ordinary silence. The kind of silence that happens when people hear something they desperately hoped was impossible. The messenger remained on his knees, breathing heavily, covered in dirt, sweat, blood. His hands shook. Nobody looked away from him, because everyone understood something terrifying. Messengers didn't arrive like this unless something was very wrong. Very wrong. The Duke stared. Calm, too calm. Repeat your report. The messenger swallowed. The northern border. His voice trembled. Another settlement disappeared. Nobody moved. The messenger continued. We arrived 3 hours after sunrise. His breathing became uneven. There was nothing left. The military commander stepped forward. Nothing. The messenger slowly nodded. Houses burned. Livestock gone. No survivors. Silence. Someone in the court whispered. Again, the messenger continued quietly. We found symbols. The Duke's expression changed slightly. What symbols? The messenger hesitated, then answered, Broken wings. The room instantly became colder. Several nobles sat down heavily. One older woman quietly crossed herself. A guard accidentally tightened his grip on his spear, because now nobody could deny it. They were back. Elena looked around. Everyone understood, everyone except her. She quietly asked, Who? Nobody answered immediately. The Duke finally looked toward her. The people who hunted your bloodline. Elena stared. My bloodline? The Duke nodded. Yes, Elena swallowed. But why? Silence. The Duke didn't answer. That frightened her because people usually answer simple questions unless the answers are dangerous. One noble suddenly stood. Your Grace. The Duke looked toward him. The noble looked nervous. Very nervous. If they truly returned. He hesitated. Should we move the court? Another noble interrupted. Move? He almost laughed. Where? The first noble stayed quiet because nobody had answers. The military commander finally spoke. We should increase defenses. Another commander answered immediately. We already did. Double them. We already doubled them. Silence returned. Elena noticed something strange. Everyone looked afraid, not worried, not cautious, afraid. These were nobles, commanders, powerful people, yet all of them looked nervous. Elena quietly asked, What exactly are they? Nobody answered again. That frustrated her. How does everyone know things except me? The Duke looked toward her. You were hidden, Elena answered immediately. Clearly not well enough, the Duke almost responded, then stopped, because suddenly another soldier rushed inside, not running, almost falling. Your Grace! The soldier bowed quickly. Scouts returned. The Duke nodded. Report! The soldier swallowed. They found tracks. Whose? The soldier looked uncomfortable. Unknown. The Duke waited. The soldier continued. There should have been hundreds. Silence. The soldier looked pale. There were only 12. The room changed immediately. 12? Impossible. Only 12? The military commander stepped forward. Are you certain? The soldier nodded. Yes, nobody liked that answer. Because apparently, 12 was worse, much worse. Elena looked confused. Why does that matter? The elderly lord from earlier answered quietly. Because 12 means they weren't invading. Elena blinked. Then what were they doing? The elderly man looked toward her. Hunting. Cold spread through Elena immediately. Hunting. For who? She already knew. The answer still terrified her. Suddenly, the Duke walked toward one of the enormous windows. Looking outside, thinking. Everyone waited. Eventually, he asked, "How long?" The soldier answered immediately. "Perhaps days." The Duke became quiet. Days, not months, not years, days. One noble panicked. "We should evacuate." Another agreed. "Move important families. Close roads. Seal gates." Panic slowly spread. People talked over each other. Fear became louder. Then the Duke spoke. Enough. Silence returned instantly. He turned around slowly. "They are not coming for cities." The room became quiet again. A commander asked, "Then what are they coming for?" The Duke looked toward Elena. Everyone followed his eyes. Elena immediately felt uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. The Duke answered her. The room froze. Elena stared. "What?" The Duke remained calm. They searched 18 years. He slowly walked closer. They erased records. Closer. They destroyed bloodlines. Closer. They hunted survivors, now directly in front of her. And now, he looked at her uncovered mark. "They know you exist." Elena stepped backward slightly. "How?" The Duke answered simply. "The river." The room became quiet. Elena froze. "The river, saving the child, the old man, the strange water." "No, that couldn't," the Duke interrupted her thoughts. "You revealed yourself." Elena shook her head. "I saved someone." "Yes," the Duke answered. "And now they know." Elena looked down. Because suddenly, everything felt unfair. 18 years hiding. 18 years surviving. Destroyed. Because she saved a child. The Duke noticed. His voice became quieter. "You would do it again." Elena looked up. "What?" the Duke answered. "You would still save the child." Elena stayed silent. "Because yes, she would." The Duke nodded slightly. "I know." That somehow confused her more. Suddenly, the messenger who arrived earlier spoke again, weakly. "There was something else." The room turned. The Duke nodded. "Continue." The messenger swallowed. "We found bodies." Everyone became silent. The messenger continued. "Not villagers." "Whose?" The messenger hesitated, then answered. "Scouts." Military commanders immediately stood. "How many?" "5. What happened?" The messenger looked sick. "They weren't killed." Silence. The messenger's voice became smaller. "They looked terrified." Nobody liked that answer. "Not one person," the Duke asked. "Any survivors?" The messenger slowly shook his head, then quietly added, "But." The Duke waited. The messenger reached into his bag, pulled something out, a small piece of black metal, broken, burned. He handed it to the Duke. The Duke looked at it. His expression changed. Only slightly. But Elena noticed. The Duke looked toward her. "Do you recognize this?" Elena looked carefully, then froze. Because suddenly, a memory returned. Fire, running, screaming, black armor, and soldiers wearing this exact symbol. Her breathing became uneven. The Duke quietly asked, "Elena?" She slowly looked up. Her voice barely worked. "I've seen it before." Silence filled the courtroom. Because suddenly, the threat wasn't stories. It wasn't history. It wasn't old legends. The people who destroyed Elena's world 18 years ago were already moving again. And this time, they knew exactly where to look. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Not even close. She sat near the enormous window inside her room, watching moonlight cover the castle grounds, watching guards move below, watching shadows move along stone walls. Everything felt different now. Just yesterday, she worried about staying invisible. Now, the entire kingdom apparently wanted something from her, or feared her, or hunted her. Wonderful. The room itself was larger than anything Elena had ever lived in. Soft bed, large fireplace, expensive furniture, beautiful decorations. Yet somehow, it felt less safe than her tiny room above the bakery, because safety wasn't about comfort. Safety meant nobody knowing you existed. That was gone now, completely gone. Elena looked down at her uncovered hand, the mark. Silver lines curved across her skin. The thing hidden for 18 years, now exposed. She quietly whispered, "What are you?" "Of course." The mark didn't answer. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Elena froze. Very few people knocked this late. Another knock, gentle. A woman's voice followed. "Miss Elena?" Elena stood slowly. A servant. Elena hesitated, then moved toward the door, opened it slightly. A young woman stood outside. Simple servant uniform, dark hair, small tray, tea. The woman smiled politely. "His Grace requested you eat something." Elena frowned. "The Duke?" The servant nodded. "You didn't touch dinner, that was true." Elena opened the door. The servant entered quietly, placed tea on a table. Everything looked normal, very normal. The woman smiled again. You've had a difficult day. Elena almost laughed. Difficult. Yes. That was one word for it. The servant quietly asked, Can I ask something? Elena nodded carefully. The servant looked toward Elena's uncovered hand. Is it true? Elena immediately became uncomfortable. What? That you're really? She stopped. Elena answered quietly, I don't know. The servant stared for a moment, then smiled strangely. Not kindly, not warmly, strangely. You really don't know. Something about her voice changed. Very slightly, Elena noticed immediately. The servant slowly moved closer. You know, she quietly said, you should have stayed hidden. Everything inside Elena screamed. Danger. The servant moved fast, far too fast. Steel flashed. Elena barely moved. A blade sliced through air where her neck had been. The table crashed. Tea exploded everywhere. Elena stumbled backward. Her heart nearly stopped. Not servant, assassin. The woman attacked again, fast, precise, no hesitation. Elena barely avoided the second strike. The blade cut part of her sleeve. Elena hit the wall. Panic exploded. What do I do? What do I do? The assassin moved again, too fast. Elena raised her arm instinctively. The blade touched her skin. Then suddenly, something strange happened. The candles exploded. Every candle, at once, darkness filled the room. The assassin stopped. What? Elena stared. She didn't do that. Did she? Moonlight barely illuminated the room. The assassin attacked again. Elena moved blindly, tripped, fell. The blade struck wood, very close, too close. The assassin cursed quietly, then whispered, You should have died 18 years ago. Elena froze. 18 years. The assassin knew. Of course she knew. That was why she was here. Elena crawled backward desperately. The assassin stepped closer. You surviving ruined everything. Everything? What everything? The assassin raised the blade. Then suddenly, the door exploded open. Guards rushed inside. Stop! The assassin instantly changed direction, not toward Elena, toward the window. A guard grabbed her. Too slow. The assassin pulled something from her clothes. Small glass, crushed instantly. The room filled with smoke. Guards shouted. People coughed. Visibility disappeared. Seconds later, silence. The smoke slowly cleared. The window remained open. The assassin vanished. Gone. Just gone. Guards searched immediately. Nothing. A commander entered, then more guards, then servants, then finally the Duke. Lucian Ashford walked inside. Looked around once. Broken furniture, destroyed candles, open window, shaking Elena. His eyes moved slowly. What happened? Elena stared. Still breathing heavily. A servant. The Duke looked toward guards. Find everyone who entered this wing. Guards immediately left. The Duke looked back at Elena. Were you injured? Elena shook her head. Barely. The Duke noticed the cut sleeve. You're bleeding. Elena looked. A small cut. Nothing serious. The Duke became quiet, then asked, What did she say? Elena hesitated, then answered. She said. Her voice became smaller. She said I should have died 18 years ago. Silence. The Duke's expression changed, very slightly. But Elena noticed. The Duke asked, Anything else? Elena nodded slowly. She said surviving ruined everything. The room became quiet, very quiet. The Duke walked toward the broken window, looked outside, thinking, then quietly said, Faster than expected. Elena looked confused. What? The Duke turned. They moved faster than expected. Elena stared. You knew this would happen. The Duke answered honestly. Yes. Elena became angry immediately. You knew? The Duke nodded. Yes. And you didn't tell me? The Duke looked directly at her. Shouldn't have found you this quickly. Not comforting. Not comforting at all. Elena suddenly realized something. Very slowly. Very horribly. She looked around the room, the guards, the servants, the hallways, then back toward the Duke. The assassin entered my room. The Duke remained silent, Elena continued. She wore servant clothes. Silence. She walked through guards. More silence. Elena's voice became quieter. Someone helped her. Nobody answered. Because nobody needed to. Everyone already understood. If assassins entered the Duke's private castle, someone inside wanted Elena dead. Very dead. Elena looked at the Duke for the first time. Not afraid. Not confused. Suspicious. Because suddenly, the safest place in the kingdom might actually be the most dangerous. The castle felt different after the attack. Not safer, never safer, just louder. More guards in the halls, more locked doors. More whispered conversations that stopped the moment Elena walked past. Everyone looked at her now, not like a servant, not like a guest, but like something unstable, something dangerous, something that might explode at any moment. Elena hated it, because she didn't choose this. She didn't ask for any of it. She just wanted to survive quietly, like she always had. But quiet was gone now. completely gone. That night, she was taken to a different chamber, not her room, a smaller room, closer to the Duke's wing. Protection, the guards said. Elena didn't believe them. Protection felt a lot like imprisonment when every door had a guard outside it. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. The mark was still there, still unchanged, still unanswered. She flexed her fingers slowly, as if expecting the mark to speak. It didn't. Of course it didn't. A knock came. This time she didn't flinch as badly. She was learning. Fear becomes routine when you're not given time to recover. The door opened. Duke Lucien Ashford entered. No guards behind him, no escort, just him. That alone made Elena uneasy, because someone like him never moved alone unless he wanted to control the situation completely. He closed the door behind him, locked it. Elena immediately stood. Am I under arrest? The Duke paused. No. That answer did not help. She narrowed her eyes. Then what am I? The Duke studied her for a moment, not like a prisoner, not like a threat, like a question he had been trying to solve for years. Then he walked further into the room and finally spoke. You want the truth. Elena crossed her arms. I want all of it. The Duke nodded slowly. You may regret that. Elena didn't hesitate. I already regret everything that happened since the river. A faint silence passed between them. Then the Duke turned away slightly, as if organizing thoughts that were not easy to say. For the first time since Elena met him, he looked tired. Not weak, just burdened. 18 years of something heavy sitting behind his eyes. Then he said it. 18 years ago, your family was not destroyed in a war. Elena stiffened slightly. The Duke continued. They were betrayed. A pause. From inside. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Inside. That word hit harder than anything else, because inside meant trust. Inside meant safety. Inside meant someone opened the door, she whispered. By who? The Duke didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the window, looked outside, at the castle's walls, at the guards below, at the world beyond. Then he spoke again. Elena frowned. There are many noble families. The Duke nodded. Yes, then colder. But only one had access to your house that night. Elena's breath slowed. She didn't like where this was going. The Duke turned back to her. They sold your family. Elena's voice dropped. For what? The Duke answered. Money. Silence. Power. Silence. Titles. Elena stared at him, her hands slowly clenched. That's it? The Duke nodded once. That's always enough. Elena shook her head slightly. That doesn't make sense. The Duke stepped closer. It does to those who want more than they have. Elena looked away, trying to process it, trying to find something that felt logical. But logic didn't help when your entire life was built on something you never knew existed, she whispered. So someone just handed my family over, the Duke answered quietly. Yes, a long silence followed. Then Elena's voice broke slightly. What did my family do? The Duke's eyes sharpened. That is the wrong question, Elena frowned. What? He stepped closer again. Slow, controlled. Your family didn't do anything that justified what happened to them. Elena froze. That sentence didn't feel real because in her experience, everything had a reason. Everything had a cause. Nothing just happened. But the Duke was saying otherwise. She swallowed. Then why them? The Duke hesitated. For the first time, just a fraction of hesitation. Then he answered, because they had something others wanted to control. Elena felt cold. What something? The Duke didn't answer, not immediately, and that silence told her everything she needed to know. It wasn't simple, it wasn't safe, it wasn't something she was ready for. Elena stepped forward. No more half answers, her voice was sharper now. I've been dragged through courts, almost killed, attacked in my room, and exposed in front of nobles who look at me like I'm a monster. Her breathing quickened, so stop protecting me from the truth. The Duke studied her, long, quiet, then finally nodded. You are right. That surprised her. He almost never agreed easily. Then he said it. Your family protected something. Elena frowned. What? The Duke's voice lowered. Something powerful enough that kingdoms would kill for it. Elena shook her head immediately. No, we were nobody. The Duke replied instantly. That is what they wanted you to believe. Silence hit the room again, he continued. The betrayal came from a noble house that promised protection, Elena whispered. And instead, the Duke's expression hardened. They opened the gates. The words hit differently now. Gates, open, inside. Elena felt her chest tighten, so it wasn't just betrayal. The Duke nodded. It was a massacre. Elena's voice dropped. How many survived? The Duke paused, then answered carefully. You. Elena froze completely. That's impossible. The Duke shook his head. It is not. She stepped back slightly. No, her voice cracked. There were others. I remember voices. I remember. The Duke interrupted. Elena stopped. He continued. Memory does not always reflect truth under trauma. Elena stared at him. So you're saying I was alone? The Duke nodded. Yes. The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too heavy, Elena whispered. Then why did I survive? The Duke answered immediately. Because you were taken, Elena blinked. Taken? Yes, silence, the Duke added. And hidden. Elena felt her heart slow. Hidden by who? The Duke's eyes darkened slightly. That is what I have been trying to find out. Elena stared at him. For the first time since meeting him, she saw something behind his expression. Not control, not authority, something like frustration. Like he had been chasing the same truth for years. Elena asked quietly. Why do you care? The Duke didn't answer immediately. Then he said something that made her breath catch. Because I was there the night your family fell. Silence. Absolute silence. Elena felt her entire body freeze. You were there? The Duke nodded once. Yes, her voice barely worked. Did you? She couldn't finish. The Duke answered anyway. No, a pause. I arrived too late. Elena's legs felt weak. She sat slowly on the bed again, processing, breaking, rebuilding. Everything she thought she knew was collapsing. The Duke looked at her. And when I arrived, his voice lowered. There was nothing left but ashes, bodies, and one missing child, Elena whispered. That was me. The Duke nodded. Yes. Silence stretched again. Long, heavy, final. Then Elena asked the question that mattered most. Who betrayed us? The Duke stayed silent, longer than before. Elena stood again. Tell me. The Duke's jaw tightened slightly. Then he answered, slowly, carefully. Someone's standing in this castle. Elena's heart stopped. Her eyes widened. No, the Duke nodded once. Yes. Elena looked around instinctively, as if the walls themselves had suddenly become dangerous. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Who? The Duke didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the door, then back at her, and for the first time, Elena understood something terrifying. It wasn't just that someone betrayed her family. It was that the traitor was still here, walking the same halls, breathing the same air, and possibly already watching her. The castle was no longer silent. It was waiting. Not peacefully, not calmly. Waiting like something holding its breath before a strike. Elena could feel it everywhere now. In the walls, in the footsteps outside her door, in the way servants avoided her gaze, in the way soldiers shifted when she passed. Something was wrong. Something had always been wrong. But now, it was finally coming to the surface. The Duke did not leave her room after that revelation. He stayed, standing by the window, watching the darkness outside as if expecting it to move first. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, staring at him, at the man who had dragged her into this nightmare, at the man who said he was there the night her family fell, at the man who might be the only reason she was still alive. Finally, she spoke. Tell me the rest. The Duke didn't turn. You are not ready. Elena's voice sharpened. I didn't survive 18 years for you to decide what I'm ready for. Silence. Then, the Duke finally turned. And this time, his expression was different. Not cold, not controlled. He looked decided. Like something inside him had finally aligned. You want the truth, Elena stood. Yes. The Duke walked toward her, slow, measured, stopping only when he was close enough that she had to look up at him. Then he said it. Your bloodline was not just powerful. Elena didn't move. The room felt tighter. The mark on your hand, he paused, was never just a symbol. Elena's fingers curled instinctively. What is it? The Duke answered. A key. Silence shattered the room. Elena blinked. A key to what? The Duke's eyes darkened slightly. To something buried beneath this kingdom. A pause. Something heavier followed. Something they killed your family to control. A distant bell rang somewhere in the castle, once, then twice, then silence. The Duke noticed immediately. So did the guards outside. Elena saw it too. Something had changed. The Duke stepped back. Too late. Elena frowned. What does that mean? He turned toward the door. They're here. The words landed like a blade. Elena stepped back instinctively. Who is here? The Duke didn't answer. Because suddenly, the castle shook. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply, like something massive had struck the outer walls. A second impact followed, then shouting, then alarms, then chaos. Elena rushed to the window below. The castle courtyard was no longer controlled. Guards running, weapons drawn, firelight flickering where there should have been none, and beyond the gates, shadows, not soldiers. Not knights. She recognized something else, something organized, something patient. The Duke spoke behind her. They've been waiting for this moment. Elena turned sharply. You knew they would come tonight? The Duke didn't deny it. Yes. Elena's voice cracked with anger. and you still kept me here." The Duke stepped closer. "Because this is the only place you survive long enough to understand what you are." Elena stared at him. "You're insane." He didn't react. Instead, he said something quieter. "We're the only one who has been telling you the truth since the beginning." A loud explosion shook the castle again. Closer this time. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Elena stumbled slightly. "What do they want?" The Duke's answer was immediate. "You." Elena shook her head. "That doesn't make sense." "It does!" Another explosion. "Closer," the Duke continued. "They don't want to kill you." He looked directly into her eyes. "They want to finish what they started." A pause. "And take what your bloodline protects," Elena whispered. "The key," the Duke nodded. "Yes." The door behind them burst open. A soldier entered, bleeding from the arm. "Your Grace, breach in the eastern wall." He stopped when he saw Elena. Fear flashed instantly in his eyes. The Duke didn't look at him. "Evacuate the inner corridors." The soldier hesitated. "What about her?" "Silence," the Duke answered calmly. "She comes with me." The soldier left immediately. No argument, no questions. That alone told Elena everything. Things were worse than she understood. Elena followed the Duke through hidden corridors. Fast, urgent. The castle no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like a trap. Alarms echoed through the stone halls. Boots thundered above them. Shouts, steel, fire. War had entered the castle. Elena struggled to keep up. "Who are they really?" the Duke answered without stopping. "Ones who erased your family." "That's not an answer." The Duke finally glanced at her. "It's the only one that matters." They reached a sealed chamber deep beneath the castle. Massive doors, ancient stone, symbols carved into the walls. Elena froze. "I've seen these." The Duke nodded. "Yes. What is this place?" The Duke placed his hand on the door. "The reason your family was destroyed." Elena's breath caught. The door slowly opened. Cold air rushed out. Inside, a chamber buried beneath centuries of secrecy, and at its center, a structure, not gold, not treasure, something older, something pulsing faintly with light that reacted to Elena's mark. The moment she stepped closer, it responded. The mark on her hand burned slightly. Elena pulled back. "What is that?" the Duke spoke softly. "The reason they're here." A pause. "And the reason they will never stop hunting you." A loud crash echoed above them. The ceiling shook. Dust fell. The battle above intensified. The Duke turned toward the entrance. "They've broken in." Elena stepped back. "Then we run." The Duke looked at her. "No." A pause. "Then we finish this." Elena stared. "You said I wasn't ready." The Duke nodded. "You weren't." He stepped aside. "Now you are." Handhungryler. Another explosion echoed through the castle, closer than before. The doors above them shattered somewhere in the distance. Footsteps descended. Many. Elena turned toward the darkness behind them, then back at the Duke. "Tell me what I am supposed to do." The Duke looked at her hand, at the mark, at the chamber responding to her presence. Then he said the final truth. You, Elena, froze. "Unlock what?" the Duke answered quietly. "Everything." The footsteps reached the lower stairs. Voices now, close, very close. The Duke stepped forward, standing beside her. For the first time, not as her interrogator, not as her captor, but as her shield. Elena whispered, "If I do this, what happens?" The Duke didn't hesitate. War, silence, then louder footsteps, almost at the door. Elena looked at the structure, at the mark, at the truth she had been running from her entire life. Then she raised her hand and touched it. And her ruler, the moment her skin made contact, the entire chamber lit up, and somewhere above them, the castle gates finally broke open. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a story about a hidden girl or a ruthless duke. Something far bigger is unfolding, and this is only the beginning. If you want to see what happens when Elena finally unlocks the truth, and what lies beneath the kingdom that even the Duke feared, don't stop here. Like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part. Because the moment that chamber fully opens,